In the 15th century, Rau became the capital city of the Arakan Empire, a kingdom that lasted for 354 years, with pagodas built by many different kings, hidden from the world, surrounded by hills, mountain spurs and ranges, streams, winding rivers flowing through valleys, mountains and lakes. My name is Ishan, and I was born here in Rau, in Rakhine State, a state located in western Myanmar. When I was a child, my family would gather by candlelight as our elders recounted stories of our ancestors and our lost kingdom. I used to spend my days exploring the wild and dusty orange hills of my hometown. And little did I know that the hills that I used to play on would one day reveal ancient pagodas, fortresses, a palace, and the remains of the legendary capital that I grew up learning about. I come from a long line of Rau's last remaining archaeologists and historians. My grandfather, Tatun, my father, mother, and now younger brother, Pru, all studied our ancient city and what remains of our history. In a way, our family has been the guardians of the city, working day and night to protect and conserve what remains of it. This is the story of my hidden city, Main Rau, one of the world's last remaining undiscovered ancient cities. In 1430, Rau became the last capital city of a unified Arakan Empire. King Monsomon, whom we revere as the founder of this kingdom, built his capital at the crossroads of two rivers. Rau is thought to mean the first accomplishment in archaic Arakan. By the 16th century, Rau had become a crucial part of the Silk Road that connected Arakan to every part of the globe. My brother often tells me of Arakanese, Bengal, Burmese kings and queens, Afghan soldiers, Dutch, Portuguese, Abyssinians, Persian traders, and even Japanese samurais who came to this place, the dreams and beliefs of empires passing through these gates from all over the world. Surrounded by moats, hills, mountain ranges, ramparts, reservoirs, and winding rivers, the natural landscape rendered the city invisible to the world from the four cardinal points. Rau became so powerful and well fortified that it was one of the only trusted routes through which riches from neighboring kingdoms were transported. And with great wealth and power came great homages. It is said that Arakan was the first place in Myanmar to receive the teachings of the Buddha, and that the Buddha himself came to this region. Our kings built pagodas throughout history to honor the karmic debt that has showered the kingdom with such great fortune. While some pagodas are easily visible, some have been abandoned over time to the forces of nature. Every day, I walk past the Shitong Temple, also known as the 80,000 Pagoda, constructed by King Mamba after his conquest of the 12 Bengal cities. Inside the Shitong Temple are colorful stone carvings of animals, people, Buddha, kings and queens, and a mythical Rakhine creature called a Bial, a combination of 9 different animals. Much of the ancient history of Rau can be found on the walls of this temple. King Mamba's son, King Mandika, built the Kotang Pagoda, also known as the 90,000 Pagoda, which my parents excavated. My father was the deputy director of the Rau Archaeological Department at the time, and my mother was his assistant. They spent every waking moment planning the excavation of this site by drawing rough imaginary sketches, trying to locate the entrances, enclosures, and stairways from historic documents and the oral traditions that had been passed down through generations in our family. I can still remember the day back in 1996 when my parents brought me to the site, showing me a world beneath the surface. They took me by the hand to one of the hills that I used to climb on, and we entered through a door that had been pried open after hundreds of years of sleep. It was so dark that I had to blink my eyes to adjust to the low light. When I opened my eyes, thousands upon thousands of Buddhas unfolded before me, each with their own story. The same guardian augurs and augresses from King Mandika's time continue to protect the entrances of the pagoda, keeping a watchful eye over those who dare to cross the threshold. Just a stone throws away from the Shitan Pagoda is the Dokantain Temple, built by King Manphulang, also the son of King Mamba and the half-brother of King Mandika. He was chosen to lead the kingdom, and he built the temple with the heaviest stone foundation that could be achieved at the time. All human stone carvings hold a lotus bud to pay respect to the Buddha. It is also the only temple in Myanmar that depicts everyday people and how they lived and dressed during that time. Much like in the older days, sharp echoes still ring through the hallways to this day, as clear as when it was first built. The 21st century has caught up with my city in some ways. Cars and motorcycles meander along the dirt roads. Nearly every resident has a mobile phone, which they use to connect to the rest of the country and the world. Children hear stories of their ancestors, not by candlelight, but by lamps and house lights powered by electricity and solar energy. While the modern world is here, I still see traces of a preserved culture every day, and our way of life has remained largely unchanged for centuries. Our people live simply. We are a mix of ethnicities and values, living with each other and with nature. We are not defined by our traditions, but they give us balance and guidance and endless beauty. We work with our hands, weaving hats out of bamboo, sculpting statues, making our traditional Rakhine drums with goat and cow skin. Drum beats below as we chant our native songs. The sound of conch shells calls us back to the time of our ancestors. Every morning, as I have done since I was a little girl, I cook offerings for the monks and bring them in tiered containers to the monastery to seek the monks' blessings. Families make fish soup to eat with fresh rice noodles, the same recipes that have been passed down for generations. Except for Sundays, locals go to the wet market for fresh produce. Farmers begin wholesaling at 3 a.m. and the market opens at around 5:30 a.m. Fish, seafood, meat, and seasonal vegetables are splayed across counters and mats, 1,000 colors and sights and smells greeting us. Vendors use a traditional Rakhine weighing machine with a special type of weight for their wares, and the clinking of weights reverberates against the sound of customers shouting for a better price. The most common produce in Rau are cauliflowers, small potatoes, monen, bamboo shoots, chilies, banana stems and buds, pumpkins, and green papayas. We often joke that there is never a ripe papaya here because everyone eats them when they are green, sliced into thin shards as local papaya salad. On our luckiest days, we can find freshwater snails called moret from local rivers lined with nipa palms. These snails are a delicacy for us and can only be found in our part of the country. Every year in May, we hold a festival dating from hundreds of years ago, the days when the Arakan had their own navy. Men from the city and neighboring villages go in search of a single tree that can produce a boat up to 70 feet in length. Teams of men race against each other on the rivers in these dugout boats, thrashing against the current as monsoon clouds gather to welcome the rainy season. We also have a traditional wrestling event, also dating from the times of the kings, called chin, meaning swift like a tiger. It is a combination of the words cha, meaning tiger, and yin, meaning to fly. Among the two players, one is cha, the person who has to catch their opponent. The other is yin, the one who has to try to escape from the cha. The players switch roles in the next round. The boat race and wrestling are very specific to Mrau and cannot be found in other parts of Rakhine State. For those lucky enough, they witness traditions that haven't changed for centuries. We all take part in finding the balance between our past and our future, between our traditions and preparing for the future, while living and working in our blended world. My brother and I are like so many other young people building towards the future of Mrau, hopeful that a new chapter awaits our city. Like my grandfather, Uutatun, who established the Mrau Archaeology Department in 1955, my brother, Somonpru, hopes to keep the family tradition alive after joining the same department to continue protecting our history and culture. His role in the archaeology department is to check on the monuments regularly and make sure no one is defacing them or stealing things. He loves to share stories of how different parts of the city were built and rebuilt throughout its history, which I thought of recently when managing our rural road building projects. Hope lives in all of us. In July 2019, Bagan, perhaps the most famous tourist destination in Myanmar, was finally designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. For those of us in Mrau, we cheered for our country, and we cheered knowing that if Bagan could be recognized as an international destination, then someday we can too. We dream of occupying a place of wonder and discovery in the hearts and minds of people around the world, to be mentioned alongside the pyramids of Giza, the sanctuary of Machu Picchu, and the temples of Angkor. Hope is what keeps our excavation efforts alive as we prepare for a future that incorporates our past. The excavation of the ancient palace site has only just begun. The further we dig, the further we can picture how the royal parliament convened daily in this palace building. The king lived in the center, his parliament lived around. Monasteries and courtiers circled the king's quarters. Queens, princes, and princesses lived outside of the palace city walls in case of enemy attack. this is just a fraction of what lies beneath the hills and terrains of Rau. There is still so much to uncover in my hidden city. As we awaken from the country's deep slumber and the world's eyes are on Myanmar, I wish for the world to come and discover the magic of my hidden city, Rau, a place of untouched wonder and serenity.